people, once a conflict happens in a friendship, they think that's like the end of the friendship. There can be conflict in that you resolve it, you talk, address your boundaries, what you think, and like, say your opinion. And if the other person is willing to respect your opinion and not change themselves like deep down, but, be willing to accommodate each other's boundaries and stuff, it can be resolved. It doesn't always have to end.
Yeah. Welcome to the Thriving in the Middle podcast. Believe it or not, I chose to spend the rest of my life in middle school. I've been teaching for over 19 years, and my primary goal can be boiled down into one task: developing human potential. My three favorite educational words are autonomy, agency, and authenticity. There's nothing more authentic than hearing about the realities of middle and high school life directly from the students who have lived through it. Whether you're a parent looking for perspective, a teacher trying to better understand your students, or a student looking for some guidance, this podcast has something for everyone. The goal is not only to help you survive, but to thrive during this complicated time of life. Ready? Let's thrive together. Today, we are joined by Miho Gillespie. Miho is a recent 2025 GHS graduate. I had the pleasure of having Miho in class 5 short/long years ago. Since it's very early August, heading into the weeks and months where your life's going to transition pretty quickly and rapidly, I'm excited that you took some time out to sit down and talk. Hi, Miho.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
100%. How are you?
I'm great.
Awesome. So I'm going rogue here. This wasn't a question we talked about, but I was cleaning up my mail, which my wife gets upset with me because it sits on the counter for a really long time.
That's what I do.
I love that the media class, actually a lot of these pictures came from the new media class at the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Then they used them and put them in this publication. But on this is your picture, and it says here that you won the high school design STEM or challenge during the STEM Fest at the Works. And so I'm like, oh, we got to talk about that. And you're with other podcast guest Georgia Coffee in this picture, and then Alina Katz, which Alina, I'm coming for you. She's a senior this year, and I hope she'll be on the podcast. So just tell us, like, what is that? What was the point of it? What is a high school design challenge?
So, well, it changes every year. We did it also my junior year, but this senior year, the task was, it's basically just anything STEM related, and they have different categories. And the category we chose was I believe it was like a museum exhibit design, and there were like different categories within that, and we chose natural history. And so what we did was we kind of designed it off of like keystone species, which is something I learned in AP Enviro.
I was going to say, tell us what a keystone species is.
Keystone species is...
I'm going to act like I know what that is. Tell me what that is.
So it's basically a species where they kind of control the food web. So if they leave, the whole balance of the ecosystem falls apart. And once they get reintroduced, it kind of builds it back up, like what happened with Yellowstone and the wolves.
I mean, that's one of the coolest clips. If you haven't seen that on YouTube, you should Google it.
It's crazy.
Do you want to tell us about that real quick? Like briefly what happened?
So the wolves were died off because during that time, a lot of people wanted the wolves to be hunted and killed off. And once
because they were afraid of them or dangerous or killing off livestock.
Yeah, I think, for some reason. And then what happened was the deer population increased, the songbirds were leaving, beavers were dying, the aspen were not growing or not being as, like...
prevalent as hardy.
Yeah.
And that was because when the deer population left, the deer population left or increased?
I think they increased. I think it was like elk or something.
Yeah, so the wolves left, which hunted the deer, and so the deer felt safer, much like on Denison, just walk up there, they're like looking at you like, why are you in my neighborhood? And they started eating the saplings you were talking about, like, so the small trees, so they didn't grow up around the waters, right? And so they would just sit there and eat, drink without fear of a natural predator. Yeah. And then what happened?
Well, the whole ecosystem just kind of fell out of balance. There's a certain equilibrium with everything, like the different species and amount of species and everything. But when the wolves left, that fell out of balance. But then, researchers at Yellowstone thought, what if we reintroduce them? Yeah. And so I think it was like a small number of wolves, just like a pack that they had reintroduced. And I think it was almost like dramatically they saw the levels of them go steadily back to where they used to be. Yeah. And so the aspen were growing again. The elk population went down to a normal level. The songbirds came back. The beavers came back. I think the coyotes were less prevalent because when the wolves were gone, they kind of took over.
Yeah. And when like the guy who narrates this video is British, I think. Did you see that video?
I don't know if I saw that video.
So if you look up the video I watched, it says reintroducing the wolves changed the course of the rivers, which is like really wild to talk about a system and how this one thing removed can change something dramatic. And the guy who narrates that is British, and so he's got this really cool accent. Nice. The wolves, like I'm not gonna try. I wouldn't do it justice. And so because the deer were now scared and they weren't sitting there eating the saplings and whatever other shrubbery right by the river, the trees had a chance to grow, and they put in roots, and therefore then the rivers would meander differently. Mm-hmm. So literally the reintroduction of wolves changed the routes of the rivers, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. And that's not as big of a deal, I guess, as maybe the other species inside of that and the habitats that were went back to their sort of norm, but a pretty cool idea of how you can't mess with one thing. And this is in not just with animals, but this is in a school district, this is in a community, sure. How when you have this small thing that you think is insignificant, it can have a ripple effect. And it's important. We're always so one of my favorite words is myopic. You have to think bigger picture, like if I do this thing, what impact will that have downstream?
And I feel like that has something to say with just like environmentalism as a whole, because we're losing a lot of species right now at like a very rapid rate. People are saying we're in like the 6th mass extinction, and there's some things that we don't even know we're losing that could, I don't know, be the cure for cancer. So like it's...
I read an article that species of fireflies are becoming endangered and are going extinct, and somebody was like, firefly? Like, we see them all. And I was like, I started to question myself. And so I went back and looked it up. And sure enough, there are these specific species. And I think some of it is due to pesticides and some of the things that we're spraying. How sad would it be at summertime night if you don't see fireflies, right?
They're the best part.
And I'm sure they are actually a food source to something else that's even more important than seeing fireflies.
It's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected. That's cool. So that was your guys' project, was
designing a museum. We kind of based it off of that.
Off of these keystone animals.
It was like a keystone
that were going to go extinct, or that just keystone animals and that they're important.
It was like a lesson on what a keystone species is, and then specifically to the Yellowstone event. Gotcha. So like we talked about Yellowstone as a whole, like the bears and the wolves and the elk and whatever. So it kind of just like we designed a little diorama. We made a little thing out of like clay and different poster board and stuff. And then we had a whole PowerPoint about it, but it was targeted for, I think, younger kids like K through 12 to learn about why the ecosystem and like the balance of the ecosystem is very important.
Do they imagine you're learning as you're creating the exhibit, or is it that you're creating with the intent of educating the people who are going to come into the museum and see your creation?
I think it is educating the people that are going to come and see the exhibit.
Okay, which I'm sure, I mean, it's like...
Yeah, but we also learned...
Two sides of a coin, they're both important. How did you find it? Like what you said you did it last year as well, but where did you come across this? Like, hey, I'm going to enter this thing.
It was in our IAP class. Okay. Georgia, Alina, and I were all in IAP
Gotcha.
My junior year, and me and Georgia's junior year, and Alina's sophomore year.
And IAP is a math science?
Yeah, it's physics and
cohort?
Pre-calculus.
AP
pre-calc.
Okay.
So.
And you take these together as like a block, IAP, and it's really hard.
I loved that class, though. It was really hard.
Was it hard? Yeah.
It was hard.
So things can be really hard, and you can also love the learning that happens inside of them. Yeah, exactly. There's a little good tidbit that just because things are hard, you don't have to hate them. Like, it probably means you're in the right room and you're learning something.
It means you're growing.
Well, that's cool. Well, maybe I haven't gotten too crazy on my edits, but maybe I'll edit in this photo of the three of you. That's pretty cool. Congrats. All right, cool. Now back to some of the questions that we had already previously discussed. I have a time machine, and so we're going to jump into that time machine. We're going to go back to your 5th grade year. There's a tremendous amount of hard things that you're juggling during that time. Any one of them would have been overwhelming. Your parents split apart. You unfortunately lost your brother during this time. I'm just wondering, as you navigated those things, and now you're getting ready to jump off into the world and go do the next chapter. But in those moments, they had to be overwhelming. Looking back, I'm wondering if you can talk to us, like, how did you navigate those, and what kind of advice might you offer someone who, and unfortunately, they will be confronted with really difficult situations that might seem overwhelming.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is I'm pretty sure my brain chose to forget all those things because I don't remember a lot of that period of my life, and I think it was like my brain just like put it aside to save my younger self.
Even now, you think?
There's still like I still don't remember a big chunk of that part of my life, but I will say, like I know it was hard for me in that moment or just in that period of my life, but I am a person who believes everything happens for a reason. So I know that there were some things that came out of those unfortunate instances because I know my parents are better split apart, and I know that, you know, I wasn't very close to my brother. He was 18 when I was 8. So, like, there's a very big age gap there. He wanted to hang out with his teenage friends, and I was still a little kid, probably annoying. Yeah. So, we weren't super close, but I feel like it kind of offers me a different insight into life, almost, like a different point of view. And I can
Did you have that mindset, do you think, when you were 9, that everything happens for a reason, or do you think that's something you developed?
I think I did, honestly. I think that's something I've always believed in. I don't know why my brain chose to believe that thing, but I think that's a big lesson or a big part of my life, that and everything happens for a reason.
There's a duality to it of you have to believe everything happens for a reason, and then you have to know and be comfortable with not knowing what the reason is. Yeah. And that you might never be able to piece them together. You know, we go in different paths and different things happen, and if you can truly hold on to that as a mindset and go, everything happens for a reason, and then I'm never going to know why that happened, but it's okay because it had to happen the way that it did.
And that also ties into the butterfly effect, because I remember when I was little, I do remember, because what happened was...
Another crazy science concept, right?
Yeah. I love science. Yeah. He was going out the door. I remember specifically that night, I was sitting on the couch, I think watching TV or something, and he was walking out the door. He said, "I love you" to my dad, and he said bye to me, and he left. And I remember thinking, like, a couple of days after, you know, what if I had talked to him for like 5 minutes? He would have avoided that accident, you know? So it's just kind of little things like that. I feel like anyone who's gone through a grieving moment like that with a family member or anyone else, it's always like, what if? Yeah. You know? Everyone always thinks that.
Which is a really dangerous and difficult journey to go down versus the, like, it happened because it happened and there's a purpose I don't understand. So I actually lost my sister when I was in middle school.
I'm sorry.
And it was the same. And I can say the same, that a lot of that is blurry. Like, it is this, I definitely don't think I had the mindset. Like, I think I went pretty dark for a while. I didn't have that wherewithal to go, like, this had to have happened for a reason. I've come to that later in my life, but it was a journey. And so I think anyone listening that, you know, when these things happen, and not to invalidate the seriousness of any one event or, you know, anything that you're going through that feels heavy and overwhelming, the ability and willingness to go, like, it was supposed to happen that way, even though that's really hard and it's easy to say on the other side of that. But trying to have that mindset is pretty powerful, and it's maybe one of the only ways that you can really deal with something like that, because there is no fixing it. There's no bringing anything back. Exactly. It's just that. So I interrupted you, but I just wanted to clarify, because I was curious if you had that mindset, because having dealt with something similar, I did not, and I wish I would have or could have found that. You were starting to talk about the fact that it changed your perspective, and so I'd love to hear for you to continue that thought.
I feel like it's just going through that. It kind of opened my eyes to what other people might be dealing with in their lives. I am someone who believes that empathy is a very important thing. And so even sympathy and empathy, they're different things, but with empathy, it's like you're purposely putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and maybe you have lived that experience, maybe you haven't, but it's definitely a lot easier if you have lived in someone else's shoes. So I feel like in that way it has kind of changed my perspective, because I can empathize even more with the people that have dealt with similar things that I have, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so when you started to say that, my mind went somewhere else, and I'm going to talk about both of them because they're so important. But I would say empathy is the thing. Like, I would actually lever it and say it's the most important thing. We have it on our portrait of graduate. If our world could just leverage that more, I think it would solve a lot of problems. And so, you know, when I think,
agree.
As a parent, that's the thing. We've constantly talked about our situation and what's happening around us, and trying to think about what even when even the like person who cuts you off, be like, man, I bet they're having a bad day. I bet something's blown up in their life, and I hope they're okay. Rather than honking the horn and be like, like just. And I guess it's almost going back to our first conversation of a choice to make that perspective. Like, I'm gonna choose to think that way, and I might be wrong. Like, but what a better mindset I'm gonna be in. And 9 times out of 10, it's probably true. Like, they are dealing with something, going through something. But when you said that, you said it helped me understand better what other people were going through, which is like empathy squared. Because what I was thinking is, because of what I dealt with at such a young age in my own life, I've been able to look at other problems and go, that's not a problem, right? Like, that's not a problem. And I've been able to help my own kids go like, that's not a problem. You know, are you healthy? Are you okay? Like, we have food, we're healthy, like we are okay. Whatever this other thing is, it can be a conflict, and we can problem solve it together, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. And you were talking about how you levered it and said, I can now look at the world around me and better understand that other people are dealing with these really heavy things that I don't really know about. And I'm going to lead with grace, probably, right? I'm going to like give them the benefit of the doubt, because there's so much other people are dealing with, which is profound.
And my dad is a social worker, so he tells me a lot of things that help me with like my emotions and everything. But one thing I've learned from him is that, you know, you can only control your emotions, the way you react to things, and it doesn't really benefit you whatsoever to get mad at people for something that you can't control, because they're negatively affecting you. But you know, you have the power to just say, that's not going to affect me. I have better things to focus on. I'm going to be happy in this moment. I'm choosing to ignore the hatred or whatever that they're spreading. So it's just going to help you in the long run if you do that.
You control what you can control, and you get to control your mindset and how you feel emotionally. And so, you know, you can choose not to let that person bother you.
Exactly.
It's hard, because I think our innate is to go, like, you know, we have the rage button. What's the movie with all the Inside Out? You know, that our little rage monsters inside of there. And for whatever reason, if it's you know, just instinctual or developmental, if it's, you know, we've evolved that is a safety thing to keep us out of harm's way, but we thankfully get to control it, and we can choose the other joy piece and the empathy button, and calm down and not let the person bother us.
And it's definitely easier said than done to do that, because, you know, it's something you have to kind of train to be able to be like, I'm not going to choose to let this affect me and just go about my day. Like, that's kind of hard.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
And that's why I say you'll feel it, and then you get to walk it backwards.
Yeah.
And I'm 43, and I'm still every day intentionally trying to choose that, and it doesn't always work. Like, sometimes the anger still wins. And then I get to make the choice afterwards to go back and apologize.
Yeah.
I wasn't being the best human I could be. And as a parent, I do this all the time. I go back because I want them to know, like, you should go back and apologize. Like, hey, I didn't act the way that I should have in that moment, and it wasn't you. There were 10 other things that were happening on my plate, which caused me to react and not be able to choose the right thing in that moment. But I still get to choose, even if it's after the fact.
Yeah. I think it's a huge thing to be able to apologize or admit when you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's something not a lot of people can do.
No.
So.
And I don't know, I mean, as a teacher, I think about this, like, it all goes back to not being able to be wrong also. And I see that so much in education. It's why people don't, you know, they want the A, and they sometimes don't choose the harder class because they don't want to be wrong. But like, we're not growing if we're not wrong. And I think even in our interactions with other humans and relationships, when you get to go, I'm wrong, or I'm sorry, or that's a growth moment. It's not a bad moment. Like, you're getting to choose. That's good. That's good stuff. Anything else you want to say on that before I move on?
No, you can move on.
Yeah.
Feel free.
Good. All right, so we're going to shift gears. While talking to your dad to prepare for this, he described you as a loyal friend who forms, I'm quoting him here because it was so good. He said, Miho's a loyal friend who forms meaningful relationships. I'm like, dang, okay. Like, that's what a compliment from your dad and of any human, I think. We need, I think, more of that in the world. And so I'm wondering if you could just describe what a meaningful relationship looks like to you as somebody who is being described as someone who forms those. And then what can you do, or what could a listener do to help facilitate those kind of relationships in their own life?
For me, a meaningful relationship, what it looks like is, you know, two people who are willing to not change for the other person, but like accept that people are growing and like just have mature conversations for sure. Like you want to be able to communicate with whoever you want to grow your relationship with. I think communication is a very important thing. And I would say it's not about how many friends you have. It's about the quality of the friendships that you have. Because I think when I was little, I was very like, well, I want to have the most friends, like the
felt good.
Greatest number. Yeah, exactly.
Look at all these people that like me. Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, and especially like through high school, I've really cherished my deep friendships rather than just like shallow kind of fake friendships rather than the deep meaningful ones. So it's just like, I don't know, I've found a very good group of people in my life, especially the senior year. And you know, the way we do it is we just you can choose your friends. You know, there's no one telling you that you need to be friends with someone or a certain other person.
And I think it can feel, because you've grown up with the same people often, and this is a small town, and it feels a little like if I have to be friends with these people because I always have been, but you still do have a choice, and there are 200 plus people in every graduating class, and there is a world outside of our community, and I think that gets even easier. And for a listener, be excited, because when you head off into the world, and whether that's off to college or off to the next thing, the next adventure, it gets even bigger. Like there's your net gets even bigger, and you get to choose even more. So,
exactly.
But that choice is so important, who you put in your cohort of people.
And I choose friends who are gonna cheer me on. You know, someone that I want to cheer on, and who wants to cheer me on back. Someone that reciprocates that energy. So
that's huge. So the first thing you said there that I wanted to reiterate, because it's so important, is the willingness to change. And I think we hear so much. I also hear this other mantra out in the world and in social media of like, you are who you are, don't change for anybody else. But in a relationship, it is, you know, there's two people involved. And so it could be these just small micro changes of the willingness to sort of mirror this other person, or do things that complement them, and they will do things that complement you. And those giving a little bit of leeway there, I think, is important. If you really care about this person, you shouldn't just go change willy-nilly for people. But you know, when you care about someone, and 15 years of marriage, you know, wow, do you change, right? Like we are very different people than we were when we were, you know, sophomores at Miami in college. And so there is this willingness to know that we're going to change, and we have to change together and make space for that. I think that part is really important. And then you said, you know, meaningful means maybe a little bit smaller, so quality over quantity. And if you are thinking in this quantity perspective, every relationship will have conflict involved. I think that's just the nature of it. And so when you start having quantity, you've now increased your chances for more conflict, and you probably won't have the wherewithal, the time, the patience to go meaningfully address all of those to keep those relationships healthy. And so I think there is something about like keeping a pretty close circle and finding your tribe that is healthy about a meaningful relationship. You can't have depth with everybody. Like it's just not going to happen. Exactly. It's not realistic.
There's some people you just don't click with, and that's okay. And I think and then like one other thing I was going to say is that with I think just in high school in general, this might not be everyone's case or what everyone thinks, but kind of what I've witnessed during high school is that people, once a conflict happens in a friendship, they think that's like the end of the friendship. There can be conflict in that you resolve it, you talk, you know, address your boundaries, what you think, and like, you know, say your opinion. And if the other person is willing to respect your opinion and not change themselves like deep down, but, you know, be willing to accommodate each other's boundaries and stuff, it can be resolved. It doesn't always have to end. Yeah,
conflict is not the end of the world. Like it's a necessity in interacting with other human beings, and just knowing that's. And I guess to get to that, back to that word of a meaningful relationship, you have to go through conflict. And getting to the other side of that conflict is actually where the meaningful part comes in, because you've now grown together. And so that's a good thing. It's not bad necessarily because there's conflict. Don't run away from things just because that happens. And I think people pout and then they hold a grudge. Like, I'm not going to call them or text them or answer that, or I'm going to. You miss the opportunity to solve a conflict and grow.
Exactly.
That's good stuff for sure. Not to get too personal, but a follow-up question to that. So you've been dating your boyfriend for 3 years. And so I'm wondering if you just have any advice. That's a long time. I don't know if that's the norm. I dated my high school girlfriend for 3 years as well, actually. I don't know if that's the norm in my experience, and I don't think it is currently either. And so I'm wondering, it speaks to the deep, meaningful relationship part, but any advice on navigating high school relationships, and how do you do that in a way that it's healthy and positive? And
it's communication is so important. You can't assume each other's feelings. You can't, like, I don't know, just be mad and then not tell someone why. And I think it helps that John and I have, like, similar values. We are able to educate each other on certain things and, like, change with each other, like you were saying. I
was going to ask if any of those, in 3 years, if any of those values have, like, merged together at all. Like, is there anything, do you feel like he's changed you, you've changed him to some extent?
For sure. I think starting out, I was probably, not to get political or anything, I was probably more politically knowledgeable, but then he was, like, he started researching, and I was, like, telling him about stuff, and he was entering certain classes, like environmental science and everything, where these things became really important to him. And now I'm inclined to say that he's even more politically knowledgeable than I am. And so that helps us because we can both inform each other on things and, like, keep a bias kind of view on things instead of just, like, I don't know, seeing one side rather than the other, you know? I think that's very important. Yeah. And like I was saying, communication is I think one of the most important things in any relationship, especially, like, a romantic relationship. You know, he respects me and my opinions and my boundaries and everything, so he's a great guy.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the idea that you could and I think a lot of people do this, I'm going to assume they know why I'm mad at them, and they're going to, like, know it and feel it, and so they're going to come back and apologize to me. You're like,
that rarely ever works.
Ever. They might apologize to you, but you got to communicate why you're upset. Like, you know, we're all so much in our own head, they probably were just going about their day. They don't even think they necessarily did anything wrong. Exactly. And so letting them know so that they can then fix it, that's good.
And a lot of times people are in their own heads, so you can't necessarily assume that
90%
they were paying attention to everything else that was going on in whatever situation you're in.
Yeah. I mean, we're all just trying to, like, put out fires in our brain and solve problems and get our checklist done. And so we often, unfortunately, forget about the people that we interact with on the way to solving those problems. And so telling them, if you care about them, if you want that meaningful relationship, when they do upset you or hurt you or even do something that makes you, like, really appreciative, letting them know is huge. Using our words. All right, I had the pleasure of attending the GHS drama production of Descendants. I went with my family. It was amazing, so shout out to the entire cast and crew. They crushed it. You played, it's Evie, right? The daughter of the evil queen from Snow White. I know you don't need me to tell you this, but I was blown away.
Thank you.
Yeah, your singing is amazing. It was cool to see, and I guess it's been 5 years. It's been a long time since I had you in class. And so it's cool to see people sort of come into themselves and figure out who they are and find their voices and be, really loud on stage is awesome. That was your first time, though, acting.
Yeah.
Which that's crazy, too. I wouldn't have guessed that having watched. Do you feel like, was it a calling, or do you feel like that maybe was it?
I always wanted to do the musicals. I just never had time. And I figured, this is my senior year. Yeah. This is, like, the last chance I'm going to get to do a high school musical. And no, I don't think it's, like, a career I want to pursue or anything.
You wouldn't, like, pursue it if there's, like, a production in college
no,
or
I don't
that
think
was, like,
so.
your one time on stage?
I'll leave that to the people that have done this, like, for a very long time. And it's, like, not truly my passion or anything. So, but.
Had to be scary. So, I would assume people who are seasoned have there are people who are doing this at Weather Vane at a really young age, and it's still scary to get on stage. So I'm imagining that had to be a big, a big step up for you, like a big challenge.
Yeah.
What encouraged you to do it, and then how did you overcome that fear?
Because I have, like...
And maybe it wasn't. Don't let me tell you it was scary if it wasn't. No. Maybe you're like, no, I was excited.
No, it was definitely scary at times. Because I have the Blue Notes background of, like, stage presence and everything, and, like, I've always loved singing. I've been singing forever. And so, like, with always wanting to do the musical, is kind of like, this is my chance. I'm going to audition. And Descendants is a movie franchise that I grew up with. I love Descendants. And so it was just like, oh, this is perfect. Like, this is the time I'm supposed to go.
That has to help, too, kind of that somewhat of the story and the characters and
exactly.
already.
I was able to do my research.
Channel that,
But it was definitely scary because, like, the acting part I've never done, and so I definitely felt kind of out of place. And I know for a fact at the beginning I was a little rough, and I think with the help of, like, Lonnie and all the directors and just everyone and their energy and, like, being positive towards me, and everyone was very very helpful and supportive of me.
And this is it didn't look rough, and I think I went to one of the earlier shows, but you're just saying in the practices and the leading up to that part, you were like, help me figure out how to act here.
Exactly.
Those pieces.
So I definitely improved throughout the whole process, like the 2-month process or something. It was okay. I will be honest. I thought it would be a lot scarier, like the actual performance itself. But I noticed that I wasn't as nervous acting as I was, like, having a solo in Blue Notes or something. Like, and I think it's because the acting part, like, you're kind of playing a character. You're not really yourself. So it was kind of different.
Do you think there's any expectation of yourself? Because when you're in Blue Notes, you identify as a singer and you've done this for so long, and so you're like, I've got to be great, where you're like, this is my first time acting. I can have a lower. I think
that definitely played into it for sure.
My son is trying out for golf. We just talked about this, and he said, Dad, it's kind of weird, but I'm more nervous this year than I was last year. And I was like, well, that's because you had not really golfed much, and so you had a low expectation of performance. Now you've spent 2 years golfing and all these lessons, and so you have changed your expectation of what is acceptable or what you think you're supposed to do.
He identifies more with it.
With golf, it's like a part of perfect word. It's part of his identity. And so I wonder if that was, but just to compliment you and for our listeners, so many people are afraid to, and I'm going to use the get on stage as a metaphor, to get on stage and fail, or get on stage and do the thing that they don't know how to and that's scary. They just avoid it. And what a scary / limiting way to live life, that if you aren't willing to get on stage and sing in front of a bunch of people and maybe mess up, there's no growth moment. Like, you're never going to be the next best version of yourself.
Exactly.
So that's pretty huge. And I hear that, and you were in IAP, you're in Blue Notes, like your willingness to show up and do these things that are hard in front of other people. I wish that for everyone, like the willing. And I'm still as a 40, like, and maybe we even get worse at it as we get older because you have created all these identities, and so to step out and do something that isn't a part of your identity as an adult to look stupid, I guess it doesn't go away. So that's good.
Yeah. And I think it helps just, like, my personality wise, I guess, because I have always been someone who wants to do everything. Like, if I'm interested in it, then I'm kind of just like, I want to try it, it's not anything that it is scary. And I will say, like, I know how people feel when they don't want to do something just because it's scary. I've had that feeling plenty of times. But it does help when, you have a supportive group of people. Like, a lot of my friends were already doing the musical. Like, my best friend Chloe played Mal. So it definitely helped that I had a group of people already established in there.
And that cohort, again, surrounding yourself with a tribe of people who are pulling for you, who want you to be successful, who are cheering for you, like you said earlier, that's huge.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where are you, when you think of nervousness and it being scary, is it more about I might mess up, or is it, it's a different dynamic because you're part of a crew of people who have put a lot of energy in? Is it like, I don't want to mess up for them? Like, what is the balance there?
It's both, honestly. Like, you can be nervous that you yourself is going to mess up, but I also think I put a lot of pressure on myself for other people. I'm very much a people pleaser, and I don't want to mess it up like because of someone else. Like, I don't want to put my faults on them, I guess. Because I want them to succeed just as much as I do.
Sure.
So it's like both, I would say.
And it's why I love orchestra, band, choir, the play production, all these things, and all the athletics, these extracurriculars, because it puts a pressure on you of, I need to show up as my best self because I'm part of a team but they're, hopefully they're showing up as their best self. And I think the real world actually works like that. Yeah. Like, our academic classrooms are trying to get better at doing that, but it is not a test that I'm going to take that's my grade. That doesn't happen really out in the real world. You're part of a team. You're all working together. You want everyone to succeed because that means the business does well, or the philanthropy, or whatever it is you're doing. And so I love all those extracurriculars because they're so good at putting the pressure on in a positive way that I think is how you hopefully will feel the pressure out in the real world of I'm part of this team who's really working hard and I want to help them succeed.
It kind of teaches you accountability in high school.
Yeah, for sure. Have you thought about, was there anything in acting that you haven't accessed anywhere else that maybe changed you or taught you something or gave you a lens that you haven't really felt, or was it pretty similar to a on stage Blue Notes kind of moment?
I honestly don't know. It was definitely a different experience from anything I've ever had to do. I think it was pretty similar with Blue Notes, I will say, because it's still like you're performing on a stage and you are nervous and you don't want to mess up. You want to make sure that it's perfect and everything. It's taught me that you're allowed to do things differently and like you're allowed to branch out, and it's probably a good thing that you branch out and you're going to grow. You're going to meet new people, especially. I think I've grown into a extroverted person
like it helped
through
you
high school.
Oh, yeah. Just high school in general.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know what like big events led to that or if it was just like a gradual thing in high school, but I
feel like you might have been a little more quiet in middle school.
Yeah,
like,
I think I did.
Reaching back and trying to remember, but
I definitely think I grew more into myself, and I like things like my fashion, like kind of finding my niche almost helped me, gain more confidence. And I think with the musical, and especially it helped because I was a senior.
Sure.
I'm not going to lie and say that didn't go into it. I was a senior, and I was nervous going into it that I wouldn't get in a role because it was my first time doing it. And, there's other people that are deserving of a role, and they've done this forever and stuff like that. So that was definitely like my mentality going into it. So I was nervous, and I do think it helped that I was senior, but I'm also not going to discredit myself and say that I didn't put in the work for it, because I think I really wanted to do good. I was putting so much pressure on myself, so I was practicing a ton, like outside. And
all the work you had done as a singer up to that point to be able to come on stage and sing the way that you can as well. Like that's it's not even just for this one time. Like it's work that you did leading up to that. And I love that you can do this and you can do it for the first time and know that it's probably my last time, but it's something I wanted to do. It's a box that I get to check, and like that's pretty cool. That's pretty powerful. Awesome. All right. Next question. So Mr. Redding, he comes up a lot in this room, which is a good thing. His class is so powerful. I think it makes him work on a lot of students. And so he teaches AP Environmental Science. It's intentionally designed to be, and he's been doing this, much like he's been focused on SDL and student directed learning way before it became this popular thing that a lot of people are talking about. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the class, how it felt different maybe as a student sitting inside of it than it did. And I hope you're getting more SDL opportunities in all of your classes, but I think his is on hyperdrive and he's been doing it for so long. And so it's a good lens to look at that. Like what was that class like? How did it feel differently? And did it or should it maybe change your expectation of what you get from a learning environment as you move forward?
Well, I want to start out by saying, this is the major I'm going into, environmental themed. So it was something that I was already very passionate about, and I was very excited to take the class.
But I want to pause there to say we all get that choice too, to be excited going into something. And I think that is it's going to be a positive experience because you roll into it with this excitement, where if you roll in and even if it's not your subject or your content area, you can still roll into it with this excitement. And so that's one of those, again, control what you can control. You can't control what's going to happen in the room necessarily, who the teacher is going to be, how they deliver content, but you get to control how you show up. And so I love that you said that, because punctuating, like being excited going in, is huge. Yeah,
I definitely agree. So the main difference, I would say, just looking at the class, is the Take Action project that we have in that class. It's basically a year-long project that you get to choose for yourself that's going to like benefit the community or something that you're really passionate about. It has to be like a big enough project that it can count towards a year-long thing. You can't just like say, oh, I'm going to make a sign, and that's it. Like it has to be.
I made this poster.
Yeah.
Worked really hard on it.
It has to be
night.
something that's going to last a long time.
I made one podcast that's 5 minutes long.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was already a big difference in it. And Did
that feel different? I was talking about it being big. in my ELM class, I do the same thing. And I'm like, it should be huge. Like, it should be so big and huge that maybe you can't do it. And that's okay. I had this PE teacher in 7th grade, and he would like kind of yell. His name was Mr. Smith, and he was awesome, but he was so intense. He'd be like, it's better to reach for the stars and miss than aim for the gunners and hit. So I still could see him say that. And I hear that in this expectation of, I wonder, did you feel that? Did you hear it? Does it change your self-perception of what you're capable of? I want my students to know that you can go do really big things right now. Like, there is no gatekeeper. You don't need a degree. You can go change the world right now if you're willing to put in the work and have passion. And I don't care where or what arena it's in, but you got to show up and put in the work. And so I hope my kids hear that, and I hear that in that message of do something big.
That is 100% what I felt with this class, especially with the Student Power Summit, which we'll talk about later. But it definitely gave me a lot more autonomy, and it made me realize that I can do a lot more than I think. And, you know, everyone has free will. You can do what you want. But it's kind of like the schools right now haven't really applied that to anyone else. So it's not really in anyone's mind to be like, oh, I'm going to go change the world today, you know, or I'm going to do something big. And it's always like, well, I could do something, but, you know, that's going to take a lot of time. Yeah. It's going to take a lot of effort. And I think this class made me realize that if you really want to do something, you should put in the effort to do it. Yeah. Even if you think it might not work out, you know, there's still a ton of opportunities for you to grow if you just try. Yeah,
and I mean, what a travesty to think about the millions of kids sitting in classrooms waiting for an artificial checkpoint of graduation or of a college degree to think that they can go have an impact. Yeah. And I just think like how defeating, like it would be to show up every day. I don't know how someone formulates an identity as a student who cares if they aren't doing real things in the world. Like, you're just bidding time. Like, I'm just showing up and putting in the time until I can actually go do something. That seems depressing to me. Yeah. And so instead, like, let's do stuff now. Like, imagine if we put you all to work, use all your brain power and go have some impact on the world. The net effect of that in a system, going back to our very beginning conversation, it can't not have a ripple effect that's powerful.
Yeah, I think it's very, like you were saying, it's almost like people think that I have to wait till a certain point to be able to actually make an impact. I think that's something that I thought before this class, and just like the beginning years of high school. I was like, well, I'm just going to work really hard in high school. I'm going to get amazing grades so that I can succeed in college. And now I'm like, well, I'm going to do amazing in college so that I can do good in getting my master's. And it's kind of like that thing that everyone, that's what they teach you. I feel like that's what they kind of, I don't know, they instill that in you so that they know that they want you to succeed, but it's just like the school system right now is not really.
Yeah, it's such a destination focused instead of journey, which is not rewarding, and it's depressing when you get there. There's this great South Park episode, and I've tried to find it, but I can't. But it was they ran into this building that was supposed to represent life, and so they like went into kindergarten, and then they got all the way to like, oh, I can't wait till I get to high school, and they got to high school, and they're like, oh, I can't wait till I get to college, I can't wait till I get my job, I can't wait till I can be the CEO, and they got to the top, and they were like, oh my gosh, what was I rushing towards? Like, why was I in such a hurry to get here? Because all the living was happening to get there. And so, have goals, have dreams, think of the like big picture of where you're headed, but like have an impact on the way there, because that's where the real living happens.
Exactly. I feel like that's where you make the most memories.
Yeah. It's back to the relationships too, like all those relationships, the day to day. It's so like you have to love the living and the doing and the work. And so, I try that authenticity and trying to convince students like why we're actually here. And it's there's no gatekeeper. Have an impact right now, have passions. And I think we overburden kids too, like with homework and with athletics sometimes, like the overcommitment of that where they don't have time to think about passions or going and having an impact. And I think that's a deficit. I think you've got to have a purpose.
Yeah, I agree. And I think going back to talking about the class, one thing I really liked about it is that Mr. Redding doesn't really give homework. He gives homework, but it's kind of like you can choose to do it or not. And you get a grade. I forget what the phrase is, but it's like, inspire, not require, or something like that. Good. Yeah. Where you want your kids to be able to want to do the work, like put in the work. Yeah. And if they don't want to do the work, then that's fine. That's just not going to help your grade as much.
Yeah, the math department has started to do that here, making the homework optional with the intent. And of course, there's this moment where people are like, oh, then I don't have to do it. This is great. And then they go, oh, shoot, I'm not doing well on tests and quizzes. I can't talk about the concepts intelligently. Exactly. And so now they're doing it because they understand the importance. It's a choice I make because I value the math and where that will go.
Like the importance of learning.
Inspire, not require. I like that. And all learning, right, should be that. Like it would feel less like you're doing something to me and you're doing something for me or with me alongside of me.
Exactly.
Which is I think where education is heading and is important.
Yeah.
Anything you expect of education moving forward, things that you're going to look for, or any advice of what educators should do differently, having experienced that?
I think just inspire your kids rather than shove the homework and whatever down their throats, because it kind of makes the students hate what you're doing and what you're trying to make them learn, instead of them being excited, like we were just talking about. I've noticed it, like with the Power Summit and everything, I've really learned the power of learning.
Tell us about what is the Power Summit. What was that?
So it was this huge conference. People came from all over America, and even I think she was from Belgium.
They were all from all over the country, but mostly from all over the U.S. But there were some from
some keynote speakers,
several different countries.
But it was basically a whole convention about how schools can better or not even schools, there's like businesses too, that can better integrate directed learning, like autonomy and just different ways to take charge of what you're doing, whatever, if it's a business or a school, to give the power to the people, I guess.
And most of the jobs, I think, that are I would say actually all jobs, like you don't really want to micromanage people. Like you don't want to be the person who's like telling them exactly what to do and making sure they're doing it and standing over their shoulder. It's not productive. And so you want to transfer that power over to other people and give them the autonomy so they can have choices, make the decisions, solve the problems, navigate the world without someone holding their hand. It's not only it feels good for the person who's doing the work, but it's also just way more efficient way of operating as well.
I fully agree.
Next question. It is safe to say that Granville isn't exactly the most ethnically diverse place in the world. Sarah was just on here recording a podcast, and we kind of had a similar conversation about that with her. And as an Asian American woman, this is not something that I need to tell you, I'm sure. And I'm just wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about any challenges or experiences that maybe you faced because of that, and maybe what either you took away from it or what we as listeners should take away from it, or as far as, that can be educationally, that can be community, that can be anything under that umbrella. But
I think I'm both lucky and unlucky to, just racially speaking, I think I'm lucky and unlucky to grow up in Granville, because on one hand, I don't experience a ton of racism because there's a small bubble, you're not exposed to a ton of people, and Granville in itself, there's a lot of nice people, but on the other hand, it's mainly white people. So I still have experienced racism to a certain degree, not as much as like maybe someone else in another place that is more racist, I guess.
And I have and I hope I can ask this the right way, that when the racism you experienced, do you feel like it was from a deep-seated like racist harboring that they had, or do you feel like it was out of a like ignorant stupidity kind of moment?
I think it was ignorance. I think with Granville specifically, they don't have a lot of experience with people of different cultures. They don't know what's offensive and what's not offensive, and so they just think, well, my friends are laughing. I'm going to make this joke. It's going to be really funny. There's not a lot of racial diversity where I'm at, and, they're going to think it's funny, so I think it's fine. There's no consequence that I'm going to have. And with Granville being a majority white school, they don't really experience anything else. And everyone kind of acts the same, and I think it's really important. I'm glad I'm here because I can offer a little bit of diversity, and I know
that's a big burden to harbor sometimes, right? Like
that's true.
I wanted to like clarify that as I asked that question, I don't want to try to differentiate between racism either, because I don't think there's like, oh, that racism's not as bad as that. Like it's all racism under an umbrella. But I asked that for as a teacher and a dad growing up in the community, wondering, is it like this? I do think it can feel it, all of it's wrong. I do feel like there can be this like deep-seated hatred, and I understand. I'm still choosing it versus you just don't know any better, and you don't even know how ignorant you sound. And at some point, they will grow up. I hope they'll go out in the world and they'll experience diversity and live in different places, and they'll look back. That's my hope. They'll look back and they'll go, oh, like I can't believe I said those things. I didn't know any better. So I appreciate the ability to talk about that, and I hope listeners hear that it doesn't. It's not okay. And I think that in our right now in our world, in our culture, there's a lot of people who are wanting to say it's okay. Like, stop getting so upset about these things. Yeah. And I go like, no, it's not okay. And I grew up in a very homogenous Beaver Creek, Ohio, a lot of white, like mostly white population. And I didn't know any better. And then I left and I went to college and I went to travel the world, and I got to go to Europe and I got to meet people. And I didn't have any African-American friends growing up, and I did in college, and I had roommates that were African-American. I didn't know anybody that was gay, and I did when I was in college. And so it just changed my perspective of the world, and it enabled me to go back and look at myself. I'm being completely transparent in that high school, middle school situation, and go like, oh, I can't believe some of those things I said, or that I thought, as you said, laughing at a joke that was funny, but it wasn't funny. Yeah. So that's why I said, what a burden to put on your shoulders. But I'm so thankful for the diversity that we do have in our community, because there's at least some exposure to that, even though, unfortunately, I'm sure you're on the receiving end of the ignorance sometimes. I feel like it's not really funny.
Yeah. I think there's blatant racism, and then there's just people who don't know and are ignorant. And there's something called implicit bias, where it's like a unconscious belief that you have towards a certain group of people, or just a certain race or minority or whatever.
And probably like everyone has it.
Everyone
right?
has
like
it.
You can't.
Like
oh, I don't have bias. Like, yes, you do.
You do. Yeah. Everyone has it. And it's not so much a thing of, I think everyone has that kind of core, because that's just the way the system works right now, unfortunately.
And part of it is it's just what you're used to.
Yeah.
Like out of a comfort in it's what I know, comes this implicit bias of anything that's not that, until you have the opportunity to experience it and feel it and to make it a part, you're still going to have those biases.
Exactly. And wait, I lost my train of thought.
Implicit bias, you're going to have those biases until you see those people.
Oh yeah, okay. So you're going to have those biases. So everyone has a sort of that implicit bias, but I think the difference is whether you choose to, express it or not. That's, I think, when you get towards racism.
Or choose not to express it.
Yeah. If you're actively choosing to, if you know something is bad and you know that you have that bias and you're actively choosing that is racism.
Yeah.
And even if you don't know, that's still racism. It's just like you haven't been educated yet. And I think once you're surrounded by people that are more diverse than you and have more cultural experiences or backgrounds that have lived a certain life, or just know people that have lived a certain life, that's when you're able to be educated, and then that's when the real change begins.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not changing, that's a choice. If you're not actively changing something that you know is wrong, that is a choice that you're now living with. So
and it becomes blatant racism at that point.
I think so.
Do you ever feel the burden, or have you ever had to be the person who educates? Like, do you ever in those moments like have to, and is the reaction to that what you would hope? Is it a like, I'm sorry, or is it
Well, there's been certain instances where it's like,
just depends.
Yeah, but it's kind of rough, because I've talked with other people about this, other Asians. It sucks that it is your burden to carry to like have to educate these people, but I think it is also very important to educate others. And there's been instances where I'm like, do I say something? Like, I don't want to change the vibe of the room or whatever, and I don't want to make everyone hate me for saying or for like correcting someone. But then I'm also thinking, I'm not gonna. This is my purpose. I'm the one that has the knowledge and the background and like the opinion and the feelings towards this, and just overall, like, I know how it feels to be treated that way. So I feel like I have the responsibility to say something and educate the person, because maybe they don't know that this something that they're saying is offensive.
Yeah, the responsibility sounds heavy. And I would encourage and say, absolutely the opportunity that it's never you're never wrong in saying when something makes you uncomfortable for anybody and in any environment.
Yeah.
Like you as a human being are given that right, and you should feel good about saying. And so, and I say the responsibility, I say that sounds heavy because I'm like, oh gosh, what a burden that you have to and are put in that situation. But how important it is too, because that's where that ignorant piece, unless somebody tells them, then it's hard for us to even get mad at them, because maybe they just don't know yet, and they haven't had that perspective shift. And so it's a powerful component. I'm glad you're there to say that, and hopefully they'll grow up and change and have that perspective. That's good. Any advice to any other, and the word minority is huge. There's so many things under that umbrella, but and anybody feeling some of that, like any advice to them as they navigate the next 6 years. And I'd like to think that it gets better, but I even as an adult, I still feel that I hear and I'm bombarded with other adults who are ignorant, that I'm like, no, it's not, like, you're too old now. Like, it's not okay. Like, as a middle schooler, I can go, that's I can't believe you said that, or you need to really think about that. And I try to help educate too and have those conversations. So any advice to any other minorities who are navigating middle and high school, where I think it is more prevalent in the ignorance and the coming from, I just didn't know it was better. Any advice to them as they navigate that?
I mean, I think it's hard for any minority, because that just looking at, if you hear news headlines every single hour that something is wrong, that some group of people is being targeted or something, so that kind of hatred is still out there. But I would just say, finding your circle of friends, those people can help support you and help if you need to vent or something. And I think doing something, actively trying to help a situation, is very impactful.
Empowering too.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. And I think, because I've been leaning more towards more activism projects and everything, I think it's important to educate people. And I think if you're able to do something that'll help you feel better, just consciously by yourself, and that even if it's something small, still something small will create a ripple of change. Yeah. And that might, empower someone else to say something when someone else is being ignorant. Yeah. So you never know truly what you can do with what you say or what your actions. But I think it is very important to be able to get yourself out there, even if it's scary. Yeah. Because I know, even just with teenagers and everything, it's kind of scary to go against what everyone else is thinking or thinks is cool or something like that. And I think in our societies, telling someone that they're wrong, just in general, is not something that's fun. Yeah. So I think if you're willing to be able to do that, or, do a project that reaches someone that you're trying to reach, or anything, or just the general public, that's really important. Yeah, it's so fun to, as a middle school teacher, it's the time of their life where they do not want to stand out or be different. Exactly. And so it's fun to interview high school seniors / graduates and see them come into this space where they're like, heck yeah, I'm different, and that's the thing that makes me and special, and I'm on the planet for a purpose, and I'm going to have an impact and do something. And so trying to encourage that mindset earlier for me is for sure important. I definitely think it's more boring to be normal. The world doesn't need it. No. I mean, right? They need you. What the weirdness that you have, whatever it is that you have. Whatever makes you. That's why you're here. That's so important. Yeah. Cool. Good. So my next question: we frequent Three Tigers a lot, and we see you at the host station. And so I love to talk when students have jobs, because it's not the norm. Again, I don't think it's totally normal for students to juggle having a job and then, usually people are in, and I know you are, all these extracurriculars and your academics. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us what inspired you, why did you go get a job? And then what are some things that you are taking away or that taught you something from being an employee that maybe you wouldn't have gotten from a team or an educational situation or singing? And I mean, I think most people want to get a job to get some extra money. And I think as a teenager having a job, it's not really a necessity that you need right now at this time in your life, because especially in Granville, you have your parents that are carrying most of the load for you, but it's always nice to earn some extra cash so you can do things you want.
I don't want to glaze over that though, because the fact that you needed extra money means that they weren't just handing you, all the money that you wanted. Like there are some, like there has to be, as a parent, for any parents listening, at some point where you draw a line of, I'm gonna help you. Like, of course, I'm gonna facilitate a lot of things. I paying for my son's golf lessons, like these. But there's a moment where, like, well, if you want that, you should probably go earn some money to get it, or there'll never be a shift in the brain of like, oh, like hard work is how that I then buy these things, and I had to work this long to buy that one thing. Like, it is a complete mind shift.
Exactly.
To some extent.
It's for sure like that. You don't want to, raise a kid that thinks everything is going to be handed to them. And I think with a job that has helped a lot, I'm good at managing my money now, and I think that's taught me, that's like a big thing that I've learned, and I've learned how to budget, I've learned how to save. I like spending money, but that's besides the point.
I think it almost earns a right to spend money, though, when you make money. Like, it feels different that this is money I earned. And all of it, I think, seems immaterial or fake. It's like monopoly money, and it's so important. You said you learned to budget. You're getting ready to go spend potentially or go into debt in the biggest way possible with college. And some people, if your parents are helping you, any of that doesn't matter as far as, but being able to understand, I had to work this long for this amount of money, and it's not a lot of money. No matter what job you're in, even, I look at my paycheck and I'm like, wow. In order to then understand taking on $20,000, $40,000, $100,000 worth of debt for college, and knowing what it will take to pay that back. So just being careful, because so many students will go out there and they'll spend that. Not only will they get their student loans, but then they'll get loans that will then let them live the lifestyle they want while they're in college, and they exit $250,000 in debt. That's a lot. I think having a job in high school helps you understand how long it takes to work to make a chunk of money, and then you can look at that big chunk of money, and it will curtail your spending a little bit on your way there.
And I think just growing up, it's definitely felt more of I felt the shift from teenager to adult more so, like with the responsibilities that I've had to take on. And not saying that, I'm completely independent. I still very much appreciate my parents and the things that they do for me. It's just that I know that I've had more responsibilities as I've gotten older, and I think with the job, it's helped me kind of be able to navigate that with money and everything, and just with the accountability and the responsibility that I have to show up to my job, communicate with my bosses, let them know that when I'm not going to be able to be there, or I'm sick or something. It's just more accountability for that, and this is the real world. Like, you're going to have to work in order to make a living and sustain yourself. So it's kind of just taught me more of the adult world. And I think going into college, especially this summer, I've had to realize that more, that I have more responsibilities that I have to take care of. And so the job has definitely prepared me for that.
Yeah. And, I think when you're a part of a team in that capacity, like school, it's free. And like, so it's hard to understand the amount. It's not free, right? Your parents worked really hard. They paid taxes. There's lots of things that went into paying for this thing to happen. That's awesome. But it feels free. Like you get to show up. You're required to be there. There's attendance. Where when you show up and work there and you're part of a team of a business, and, I know the owners of Three Tigers, and I know, where they started. I watched them start off in a food truck, and I watched them build Three Tigers on the other side of the street. They put their heart and soul into this place. And so understanding that feeling, that accountability of like, I have to show up and I have to let them know, because I'm part of a team. And if not, they can't seat tables, they can't serve people. There's other people that, will have to pick up my slack. I feel like you feel that in a more genuine way than you maybe can sometimes in school.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as real sometimes.
And especially being like a teenager in a real workplace, it's like, these are real adults with real problems, and they're trying to balance life, and they're trying to figure out what to do. They need the money. They need my help.
There's that empathy piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Muscle you have flexing there.
So it's just like, it's my responsibility to be able to help these people out.
Yeah, this is running money for you, but it's somebody else's rent potentially,
exactly.
Right? Like, that's good. That's profound. Cool. I think you're going to Otterbein. Is that right? Cool. And in talking to your dad, I believe you got a scholarship. So I just love hearing about what the journey was like picking the school and why, and what was it about Otterbein, and then maybe a little bit about how the scholarship came to be.
Yeah. So before like starting to research colleges and everything, I always thought I wanted to go to OSU. Because it's like, I don't know, it's really the only one I knew.
Because it's Ohio State.
Exactly.
Ohio State football,
it's very famous.
Talk about
and everything. Yeah. And I actually did apply and I got in, but I also applied to Otterbein, and I did a bunch of research on colleges. Like when I started, going on Common App and everything, and applying to different places, I did my research, and it really came down to the size and the major. I realized that I did not want to go to a big school because I like to ask questions. I like to ask my teachers questions and be able to like really dive into what I'm learning, rather than just kind of like you float through it and not really know if I'm right or wrong.
Was that something you kind of researched online, or was that a question during tours, or something you felt, or like how did it come to be that you were like, because I think you can go and do a tour and it's called teacher to pupil ratio, like how many students per one teacher is there in this campus. And so for Ohio State, I'm not sure what it is, but it wouldn't be weird to have a lecture of maybe 200 students or something. Like you are literally just a body in a room.
Exactly.
Versus Otterbein's going to be much smaller, probably 16, 20 students in a class.
Yeah.
How did you figure that part out?
I think with OSU, you can kind of just disappear into the crowd of whatever lecture hall you're in. But with Otterbein and just like a smaller school in general, I like to take charge of my learning personally, and I like to be able to know that I'm right. I don't like guessing when it comes. That's also like the perfectionist in me. So with Otterbein, I knew it was a smaller school, and I did the tours and I saw like the size of the classrooms and everything, and I was like, this is more my style. And with the majors that I was looking at, I think OSU had like general environmental science majors and everything, and Otterbein did have that, but they also had something called zoo and conservation science, which was perfect for me because I wanted to learn more about the animal side of things, but also have that like ecosystem aspect in it. And so it's like zoology and conservation. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, I guess.
Do you envision, do you have a plan? Do you see where that goes for you in 6 years? Like what would that look like out in the world?
See, I don't know. I could see myself either going to vet school and like being like a wildlife rehabilitator or something, or getting my master's.
Do you go out the wilds ever? Like,
I have actually never gone to the wilds. I've always wanted to.
You got to get out there.
I know. I've always wanted to.
It's like in Ohio, and we have all these wild animals.
Exactly.
And you ride around. It seems surreal. You're like riding around on an open air bus, and they're
like
they
safari.
come up to it feels very safari. All right. So, but doing something maybe in that capacity.
I just
you don't
realized,
have to know. I was just curious if you like had a vision.
I realized, I think towards the end of the school year, maybe like this summer, that I don't exactly know what job I want, but I want it to be something where I'm able to talk to other people and educate them about why conservation is important, why we need to be caring about climate change and caring about our ecosystems. I don't necessarily want to be a teacher, like in a school district, but I want to be a teacher in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's a good realization.
Yeah,
I would say, because everything you described as a teacher, but there's lots of ways to be a teacher. It doesn't have to be in a classroom or a public education setting.
I just don't necessarily think I'd want to teach kids. I think it's important to educate the kids especially, but I think maybe not in this setting. Yeah. I think I'd want to go be like a guest speaker at a school, but not necessarily teach kids every single day.
It's a really hard and pretty impossible way to truly teach kids about wildlife inside of a classroom. Like, let's open up let's like go to the link and we'll put on, and it's going to turn into like VR goggles in the next 5 to 10 years. But how much cooler to be out with animals and talk to them. Like that seems,
and I think
really care about
it's important to talk to businesses too, because corporations, they're kind of the people that are messing with the environment in the first place. And I think it's important to educate them, or at least give them, I know people like to make money, and I know it's important for the economy. And I know that businesses are important, but it's like there's a balance of what you're doing to the ecosystem and what you can do for the ecosystem, or for the environment. So like I know there's like environmental consultants that can come to a business and tell them, this is how you can do this to where it's environmentally sound. Kind of like that. Like I think I'd want to talk to people and let them know, like, hey, the environment is a very important thing. Like, it has more to do with your life than you know. Even if you're not being directly impacted by it right now, you're going to be impacted in the future.
There's so many cool jobs out there that it's hard to even imagine. I think sometimes sitting in a classroom, I met somebody who his job is to, so if a major corporation comes in and they buy a bunch, which, you know, imagine what's happening with Intel and you know, all these things that are being built, they often displace wetlands or areas that are habitat to some sort of, and so they then have to buy land credits from organizations that will then reestablish habitats in other situations. And so, like, again, people have to make money. We want people to be employed and have jobs, but how can you do so in a way that's good for the environment and then offset and do other things in the environment in other places to conserve? And that'd be a cool job.
And I think with Otterbein specifically, I knew I was going to go into an environmental field, and it's just that with this certain major, it was kind of perfect for me. And once I did the tour, I was like, okay, I really like this place. And so, yeah, it just seemed like the right choice for me. And I also wanted to stay local. So it was really down to OSU and Otterbein.
Do you remember the name? I can't believe I'm blanking on it. We went last year. We did, my ELM kids did a tour of Otterbein. And it's like a sort of creative entrepreneurial hub. They just redid it at
Point?
The Point. Thank you. Did you get to tour that? Because that's a pretty cool building.
I actually have I walked my classes and everything, and one of my classes is in there. The Point. Yeah. So I got to look and everything and saw the different art pieces and like the paintings on the wall.
Well, there's labs and 3D printing, and they try to use that even inside of whatever. Like, they try to encourage history classes to come in and somehow use the space in a way. It's a pretty neat space. And then our tour guide was actually in an environmental science major. She was graduating, and she had created and I don't know if you were there when they talked about these, but it was using directing runoff water to these gardens that they had created like in the middle of campus. It was kind of cool. Do you know Bill Fox?
No.
He's a Granville guy, but I believe he's the vice president of student affairs. And his kids go to our school, and so you'll get to know him there for sure. I'm sure you guys' paths will cross. He's a good guy. So. And then the scholarship. How did that come to be? That's pretty cool.
Like I said,
finances and paying for things.
I have always been a perfectionist, and it's not that my parents necessarily forced me to like, you got to work hard in school. I did that myself. I've always been like very ambitious. I think that's also another one of my core values. Do you think it was just kind of who you were? Like, it was just ingrained. Yeah, I think it is just kind of who I am.
Do you feel like your parents are like, do you think you learned by watching? Like, do you think either of them are kind of that way?
Yeah, they're very hard workers. And I for sure think, like, I just, want to be able to set myself up for success. And just with being ambitious, I have always worked hard in school, and I've always aimed for good grades. And I think at least in my experience, a lot of the scholarships I got were based on like GPA and I mean, that's probably not the sole factor, but at least the ones I got for free without like applying.
I was going to ask, did you have to apply for these, or they were?
Some of them were things that I just got based on like, what percentage you are in the school district or like the state. Because I know I got the Governor's Merit Scholarship, which is awarded by Mike DeWine for like, I think, the top 5%.
And you don't have to apply for that. It's just
it's just something you get if you're in that percentage. And I think that has something to do with GPA, maybe. And then there's other ones that I did apply for. The big one that I got from Otterbein was the President's Scholarship, and I'm guessing that has mostly to do with grades and stuff. And so I'm glad that I was like that in high school, so that I could, that's greatly helped me. I don't have to worry about at least this first year of finances.
Wow.
So it's definitely a big burden off of my shoulders.
I always think, I try to convince you, like, this is kind of your job, and they always like, well, you're not paying us for this, we just got to show up. And I'm like, well, there really can be money tied to your energy and effort.
Exactly.
In 4 years, it's hard.
You just might not know it.
Yeah, it's a carrot that's so far out there. And again, if they don't work a job and their parents are paying for a lot of their stuff, they don't even understand the value of that dollar. But if you work really hard in high school, and you can't like, I will turn it on my senior year, and you can't pull your GPA together your senior year. Like, it really is an intentionality, and you're going to show up, and you might as well work hard at it anyways. There really is a payday that can be associated with that on the backside, with scholarships and with things that will reward you for the hard work that you did. And again, whatever the dollar, we're talking thousands of dollars that it's hard to pay that back.
It's
and so
really
it's great
hard,
that you don't have to shoulder that.
And my mom has been really helpful with that. Like she keeps reiterating that it's really hard to pay back loans and you don't want loans.
Yeah.
So that's also motivated me to, work harder in school. And I think it's also, like I was saying, with my personality of just like wanting to learn, not just like check a checkbox.
It's like, how can I exit without doing it? And I think people approach it this way. How can I get this degree without doing as little work as possible, rather than like, how can I learn as much as possible on my way to, I'll get the degree at the end.
Like I remember like studying for a test or something. It's never like, oh, I'm going to study until I just know enough to pass the test. Yeah. I've always been like, well, I want to study enough to actually be able to, teach the concept to someone else, And the byproduct is an A.
Yeah, right. It's not like I need to study long enough to get the A. It's like I need to study long enough to understand the material, and then you get the A. And the A comes with that. Like that is what that A shows. Even though we've done a really bad job as a school, and this is as educators in general. People are thinking of the A. Like I want the A. Like no, you want the learning and the understanding that the A is supposed to represent. Exactly. Like that's what actually matters. Yeah, that's good. Cool. Otterbein. Cool. What's their mascot?
The Cardinals. The Cardinals. Which is counterintuitive because I thought it would be an otter. Yeah, Otterbein. That makes absolute sense. I know.
All right, we're going to move into our next set of questions. These are questions I ask every guest, and they are geared at the middle school, high school students who are listening, and hopefully helping them navigate the next 5 or so years a little easier. And so the first question is, if you could go back and tell your middle school self anything that you think would have made navigating middle school and both high school easier, what would you go tell yourself?
I think to not care what people think. Because it's helped me a lot, and I feel like I've found myself and like who I am through high school, and it's definitely helped my confidence and just like being able to be like, it's easier to make decisions when you know what you're striving for, who you are. And not to let other people's opinions affect that. And that's not like, I'm not saying that I've conquered this completely. Yeah. Like, I still care. And it's still something I think about, but I'm just, even if I do care, sometimes I'm just like, well, who cares? I'm still going to make that choice that I want to make rather than let other people affect my choices.
I think part of that is having a like strong sense of identity. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, like, where do you think you found that, or how did you come up with like having that core identity to where the things that people are saying you can go, that's not me.
I don't exactly know like if there was like a certain point in my life that I was like, oh, now I'm completely comfortable with who I am. Yeah. I think it was multiple things. I definitely have cared more about my fashion, like the way I present myself, and like I've found my niche of how I want other people to see me, and I think that's helped. And like with Blue Notes and everything, like having that group of friends where I could just like completely be myself, that's like helped me figure out like who I am, rather than like trying to fake and like meet other people's expectations. And so, and like with the stage presence, you can just like be who you want on a stage, and it's even better if you're able to own it, rather than care what others are thinking.
That's so good. And this came up earlier, but it's having that core group, your tribe, that you're not trying to be like the tribe, but the tribe wants you in because you are unique in the tribe. Like they celebrate your difference. That's cool that you found that and can feel that. I do think that's important. And then the other stuff just becomes noise.
Yeah. I think people can tell when you're trying to be something you're not. Yeah. So.
You're not fooling anybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. All right. What was something from your middle high school years that you didn't totally appreciate, but looking back, you can say that actually was pretty great?
I would say, and maybe this isn't just like high school and middle school. I think it's like before that too, but I would say appreciating your adolescence. I was always someone that was like, I can't wait to grow up. I was so excited to get my license, and like now I'm 18. It's really exciting, and I will say there are certain freedoms that I really do appreciate and I love having, but I always find myself being like, well, I miss being a kid sometimes, and being more naive and not having to worry about what's going on in the world, and not having that burden on me anymore. And just like with being a kid, you still have that imagination aspect, and I think with the way people grow up now, it's kind of lost. And that's why I think I tend to be drawn more towards creative people, because it's still kind of like that. You still have that kind of childlike wonder, I guess.
That's a good word for it.
And so it's just, I wish I could have appreciated my adolescence a little bit more, and just like being a kid and like having fun with your friends and stuff like that. So I would say to anyone listening to just appreciate the moment that you're in right now instead of wishing for the future, because the future is great, but you're in this present right now that you're supposed to be appreciating.
Yeah, I think you can be excited about the future without wishing away the current moment. And I think this is like a struggle from the eternity of time. Like I think every adolescent has wished away their youth. They're so excited to grow up. And I think you can be so excited to grow up and still enjoy what's happening around you.
And it goes so fast. Yeah. High school went like that for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the ability to look around and go, it's pretty cool that I'm like pretty dependent on my parents, or that they're taking care of me right now. And that will transition and change. And every stage of life has these cool things happening inside of it. So we talked about that earlier, but don't wish it away. Like embrace that thing and know that it will happen. Like tomorrow is coming, whether you like it or not, and you will grow up. And I also loved growing up. Like there are, like you said, so many cool things about getting older and more responsibilities. But there's so many cool things happening in the stage of life you're at right now too. So that's good advice. All right. So stress is something that I think it happens even earlier and earlier now, unfortunately. And so I'm just curious what you found that was your best way of coping and managing stress.
I was really stressed senior year, I will say. I definitely took on way too many things, or more things that I could manage. And I still, like, I got
Was that just out of ambition? Like, these aren't things, because I'm assuming you didn't necessarily need all of them, or
no. I just wanted to, like, I have trouble saying no to things that I want to do, because like it's something I want to do. I might as well.
And you're excited about learning, and so those are all learning opportunities. So you're like, oh yeah, I'll do that too.
And so I definitely will say I understand stress to a great degree, but
would you say you felt the most stress you have yet to date as a senior?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't think other people experience that normally, but it's just the fact that I chose to do so many things, and I wouldn't necessarily say I regret choosing all of those things to do, because there were good points that I loved. Like I had great memories this senior year. I think it was my favorite, even though it was the most stressful. I think it was my favorite year of high school. But with stress, I really like meditating. I like being organized in my brain, and I find that when I'm not writing stuff down and I'm trying to carry everything that I have to do in my head, that really stresses me out and like overwhelms me, and I get a bunch of anxiety.
Do you do guided meditation? Yeah. So like and you can go on YouTube, Headspace, there's all kinds of different apps, but having somebody actually talk you through and walk you through meditating.
And you don't have to just like sit there with your thoughts.
Yeah, it's really, that is a different type of meditation.
That's harder.
And you can get like a mantra that you meditate with, but that is way harder. And I would recommend anybody that's like hasn't done meditation, just go on and find one of those apps and get in a dark room and let the thing play. And then you were saying writing stuff down, and so just, is it intentional, and like is there like a journal that you have, or it's just like I just need to put it down somewhere so that I can get it out of my brain?
I have like a whole note, like the notes app on your phone. I have a folder that's like anything that I know I will need to remember, like whether it's like something I need to do, somewhere I need to go, something that's just on my mind. Like I write it down there. I like do the checklist thing, so you can check it off after.
Do you like, is it just a running thing?
It's
like, so it's like, super long?
Yeah, it's super long.
Gotcha.
I've built it up. But it
Checklists
just helps
are great.
me. It just helps me, like, put my thoughts. I write your thoughts down, so then you don't have to carry them all in your head for later, and like that just causes you a bunch of stress. And I will say with the guided meditations, I like the guided meditations, but then sometimes I will also just do like the free floating meditation, and I've found that like doing affirmations in the morning, like. I remember there were a couple
Tell us what
weeks,
an affirmation is.
Just like saying like, maybe it's a goal that you have for yourself, or like manifesting something like I'm gonna, get what I want today. I'm gonna succeed. I'm gonna get the things I want, or like just if it's like a goal, I could be like, well, I want to, be nice to someone today. I want to be as empathetic as I can. I'm going to work hard, but not too much put too much pressure on myself. Stuff like that. I would write those down again, just putting them on paper so that that that's there and it's real.
And all of that together is powerful. So you can write them down on paper, and then you can say them and recite them as a meditation, as a mantra. Mm-hmm. And when you start doing all those in Congress with each other, it even becomes more that manifestation part. It's really, and I think, helpful in guiding your inner coach, like how you talk to yourself inside of your head. And so those affirmations, I think, can steer that inner coach to a more positive place.
And I think meditation is something you have to train. You can't just do it once and expect your whole mindset to change. It's kind of something that you have to work over time.
I was sitting there for 10 minutes. I don't feel anything. Exactly. It takes some time and practice, for sure. Mm-hmm. And it's the prolonged of that. And I do 15 minutes every single day. And I think it's that repetition of that. Yeah. If you are truly feeling stress, I think a lot of middle schoolers, when I talk to them about managing stress, a lot of them haven't hit a wall yet. They're like, oh, I'm not stressed out. But at some point in your life, you do. You hit this point where you're like, and you need something. And so those are I think
tips. It's figuring out what kind of things you like that help you calm down, because I know that for me, I love to have a routine. And I also just I love to work out and everything that helps me calm down. And so that's always a part of my routine. Even if it's a rest day, that's the thing that's in my routine. And so just having, for even just a day, you could scan out your day. And this is not for everyone. Some people just like to go with the flow. But personally for me, I like to plan things out. It makes me feel a little bit more secure and feel productive. I think also feeling productive is a big thing for me. It's just about finding what you like.
Yeah, if you say I'm a go with the flow person, but you're stressed out and anxious, maybe you're not.
And exactly.
This is for when you're looking for something. I find that a routine, having knowing where things are going to go and how they're going to do, and writing stuff down and having checklists feels so good to I did that thing. Yeah. We did this with my oldest son, because he would wake up in the middle of the night because of something he was remembering, and they couldn't fall back asleep because he was just trying to keep it on his head. And you can't do that. You gotta as soon as you write it down, it's out of your brain. You don't have to hold on to it mentally anymore.
Exactly.
So those are all good tips. Cool. How about technology? So technology is ever present, and it's rapidly evolving. And so we can talk about, and you can talk about cell phones and social media. Chromebooks have been, we're 1-to-1, and you guys have had Chromebooks the whole way through. So what does technology look like for you? Highs, lows, ups, downs, tips for managing it. What's it look like?
I this year specifically, I would say, and just getting more politically conscious too. I would say social media it can be detrimental, and especially for women. It is you're trying to match this perfect standard. For women, it's really hard. And it's 1% of people can match that perfect standard, and social media kind of plays into that. And then also with social media as a whole, there's things that are fake, there's things that are trying to bias you, propaganda and stuff. So it's kind of hard to know what's real and what's not.
And that's gotten way worse. I mean, the ability to filter with AI of what is just truly not even real.
Exactly. And it's I know personally I've had to take breaks from social media sometimes, not full solid breaks, cut off completely, but just letting my go out and touch grass, that kind of moment. So just being able to kind of get away from that, but not you don't want to be ignorant about it. If there's something that you need to know, even just watching the news, you still want to be conscious about the things that are going on in your life or other people's lives, but not to the point that it consumes you and affects you mentally.
Being deliberate of when you consume and how you consume. That's a catch-22 there, because there is some ignorance is bliss moments of not knowing, and okay, I'm going to control what I can inside of my bubble, my dynamic, because some of those big things out in the world I actually can't do anything to influence. But then you go actually maybe you can, and it starts here in my bubble, and that ripples out. And so that's a hard road to navigate of how much do I consume and how much do I know and how often. And social media can become habitual, and I have a down moment, I click it and I read, and
it's almost like an addiction.
And the curation of that and controlling what comes in and as an input into my brain.
And I think with AI becoming more popular, I encourage anyone listening to not use AI because first of all, it's really bad for the planet.
I was wondering if this is going to take an environmental
it's
twist.
really bad for the planet, and it's also just like
from an energy standpoint
it uses a ton of water,
yeah.
and it's not good. Like it also destroys land. Like you have to build these places where the AI is running, and you have to use a ton of water that's being taken from these local areas. So it's like tons of gallons of water that are being used
and then
to
the
cool
energy
down.
consumption it actually takes to run them after that point as well. Yeah.
And then it's just like with AI, I think it's really important still to be able to think for yourself and to exercise your thinking muscles in your brain. And I don't want to, not that, maybe this becomes a reality, maybe this doesn't, but I don't want to be in a world where everyone is just kind of like this and you're using AI to kind of be a fake person. Like it's not really like you're living in your true reality. Like I think it's important to be able to learn things on your own and be able to do things on your own just to be like to become a productive person.
Well, even when you think about, and this is as a teacher, the task that I'm given, how do I convince my students that, like, why are we reading and why are we writing?
Yeah.
It's not for me. Like, if you're writing a paper with me as your audience, I've done something wrong as a teacher. First and foremost, we write because it's how we think. Like it's truly like how we wrap our brain around complicated concepts, and then it's how we influence other people. And it, it's a media heavy world, but all of that started with somebody writing down an idea, scripting something out, and then it might get turned into video and audio. Same with this podcast we're having. There was a tremendous amount of writing on the back end of coming up with questions and formulating what we're going to talk about. And so trying to convince that like that's, if you're using AI to do all the writing, you're not actually thinking, like you're not actually digging into those concepts. And so that's my job. And I don't know, stay tuned on how good I can do at convincing like the why behind what we're doing. AI can literally do any homework assignment in a matter of moments. And so if the teacher assigned it as the homework was the point, then they failed. And so making sure that the things back to that authenticity, having purpose, being a change maker, AI can't really do those things. AI can't even write up it can't write up the things that I post on social media about the projects that the kids did because they're so unique and awesome. Like it takes a human being to know all of what went down.
You would have to like enter all of that.
You would, and then you might as well just write it. Making sure that the authenticity and the purpose, I think, will help curb some of that if we can find that.
And I know it's hard. Like AI is everywhere now. It happened like that. Like I feel like overnight AI just became a thing.
For sure.
And not to say that I haven't used AI. I think senior year I used it a lot until I realized what effect it's having on people and like the environment. And then I was like, okay, I can't use this anymore. Yeah. So it's just like kind of like that. You just have to be able to acknowledge that this is something that could be dangerous, that is dangerous to the environment.
MIT just came out with a study, and there hasn't been a ton of research done on how it impacts the brain and your ability to think as a human being, just because it is so new and so rapidly evolving. And so MIT just came out with a study that it really is having an impact on how you can process and creatively think and problem solve, those who use it regularly. And we talked about Ohio State earlier. They came out and blankly said, and you can villainize this really quickly, but I think I understand where they're coming from. But they want every Ohio State student to be versed in AI and know how to use it inside of their major. Realistically, AI is probably not going to go away because it's such a powerful efficiency tool for the mundane task. And so I understand why it would be important to be versed in how it might be applied inside of a particular major, but making sure that it is still this tool in a toolbox that's secondary to the bigger tool in your toolbox of your own creative human brain that has empathy, which, by the way, like you can ask AI to have empathy or you can ask AI to think, but it's not a human. Like it can't process that way. Yeah. So that's important. That's key. Cool. All right. Just a sort of open-ended last question of anything for listeners they should start doing now to be a better prepared human for when they're sitting in your seat as a senior ready to head off to, as a graduate ready to head off to college or to their next chapter.
I think just like live in the moment, because if you're constantly chasing what's going on in the future, you're going to miss what's happening now. And for me, I am also a very anxious person. And so for me, it's like overthinking about the future is what makes me anxious. And so just being able to live in the present and focus on what's going on right now and what's good and about the world right now is something that's very grounding. And I think people, because you're going to get more stressed as you get older. That's just kind of like a given, because there's more responsibilities that you're going to have to take care of and things that you're going to have to do. And I think prioritizing your mental health first is a big thing, because you can be successful as you want, but if you're just like mentally drained, it's not going to be as fulfilling as you want.
So I push back on that a little bit, just as a genuine question of, can somebody be where you're at without being as prepared and future focused? And, you know, like, are they going to have the great grades, and are they going to get the scholarship, and are they going to get into the school that they want, and they're going to have a plan, they're going to know where they're, can you, you know, the live in the moment sounds great. Can you do that and still be as prepared for what's next?
I think so. I think it's like, if you put it in a different, like, you know, like romanticizing your life, like, instead of just being like, oh, I have to do this, like, it's the only way I'm going to be able to succeed in life. It's like, I'm going to do this so I can, you know, grow up and be successful. I'm going to set this goal for myself that I can give, and like I can reach toward that goal, and it's going to be really great for me and for my growth in life. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of the more positive way to spin it, but it's not like you're putting so much pressure on yourself to reach a certain goal that may or may not be attainable.
I love it. Yeah, and I think I that's why I asked you to clarify. And so I love that it's back to control what you can control, and you get to control your perspective on how you feel about what you're currently doing. And so this is really easy to say, hard to do, but you actually get to choose to think about the situation. Like, you can do all the same things, and you can choose whether you're going to see it as this overwhelming, stressful thing that if I don't do it perfectly well, you know, my journey is forever broken and I'm not going to get into the school. Or you can do all the same things. They can unfold exactly the same way, and you can just choose to see them as this cool opportunity that I have, and I'm going to do my best. And if I hope it goes really well, and if it doesn't, I know that I can do something different and pivot. And so the ability to control your mindset around the experience you're having, which makes it a more positive one.
And I just feel like if you're truly trying your best, not like the best in this, like best, I'm talking like your best, both mentally and physically, you are going to be fine.
You'll find success.
Yeah. Even if it's not like money success or like job success, it's still success. Like, if you're happy, you know, there's different definitions of success.
Because you get to feel good about knowing that you tried and you did your best at it. And I would say that largely there is a money is not, it's a lubricant. So it should never be the goal, but it's an important piece. It's what enables you. You gotta buy food. You gotta have a house. Exactly. You gotta, you know, pay a mortgage, or rent somewhere. You want to like save the world. It takes money. Like, those things are all lubricated by money. And so I would say that if you show up, you do feel good, and you like, I did my best, and money will come. Like, money will follow that in some capacity somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Good. Cool. Well, we did it. That's the end.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
do you know how many days you have left till you head off?
What's today? The 4th?
Today's the 4th, yeah.
And I'll have 16 days.
16 days. And it's kind of nice that it's not so far. Like, you could still bop home.
I still have to write a whole essay.
For?
There's like a reading assignment, like a summer reading assignment with an essay attached. Yeah.
What was the book?
It's called Life on Delay. Have you?
I haven't read it. Is it good?
It's written by a person who has a stutter, and it's basically him coming to terms with his stutter. It's like his whole life journey, his struggles with it, and you know how he's learned to accept it. So.
My wife is a speech therapist, so she will love that book for sure. I'll totally recommend it.
Get her on that.
Thanks for coming on. I can't wait to see you out in the world, impacting the environment and saving some animals.
Thanks for letting me talk.
Absolutely. Thanks. As always, thank you to my guests for taking the time to sit down and share their experience with us. A shout out to Hayes Browder, my son, for creating the original audio used in this episode. A huge thank you to the Granville Education Foundation. Their hard work and grant opportunities have made this podcast space available for my students, and I am incredibly grateful. Another shout out to all my listeners. In a content-rich world, I am humbled by those who take the time to hear the reflection, introspection, and advice offered inside these recordings. I truly believe this podcast has made me a better teacher, father, and overall human being. I hope you find that to be true as well. Until next time, be kind, be grateful, be you.